All right, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. It's good to have you guys join this our November meet. Um, I'm glad we've been able to do some. We've not been able to do every month, but I think we've done better than last year to try to keep up our monthly sessions. But I'm glad you guys are making out time to join. I know it's not very convenient for everyone to join at 5 o'clock because some of you are on your way back home from work and stuff. So some of you are still in transit. But I appreciate every single one of you that can join. So thank you, Miracle. Thank you, IK. Thank you, Vivo. Thank you, Ore. Thank you, Felix, and thank you, Chanel, for joining. All right, so I'll just go right into it and start our discussion. I know the last time I sent a voice note on the group, I mentioned that I wanted to talk about this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and some of my thoughts concerning the book. And I think to start, I want to say that this was largely inspired by some sessions I had. I think early last month in October, I had two private sessions with two different people, and they were both startups. One was a startup that had been working for a while, a group of people that they had been working together for a while, and then they went about to do 9 to 5s, and they left their startup. But now they are willing, they wanted to come back to start up again and to get the company on the roll again. So they asked me to have a couple of meetings with them just to let them have some clarity as to number one, why they stopped in the first place, and to see whether they are ready to get back into it again. I think the second one was with a single person that had been into business for a while and was feeling some disillusionment by how his business was doing. So we had a session on that too. But one thing that was interesting about both these sessions that I had was the fact that they both mentioned a quote from Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And both of them mentioned this quote, and but they're not the same quotes, different quotes. And say, but Robert Kiyosaki told us this, and he said this. And both quotes that they mentioned was something that was putting them under immense pressure. I realized that they are trying to live up to what Robert Kiyosaki was telling them to do, was putting them under immense pressure as to starting their business and how fast their business was growing and where they were in their life, in giving a good assessment to where they were in life. And that kind of caught my curiosity. I'm like, why did these two people quote from this book that seems to have impacted so many people, but right now it doesn't seem to be helping them move along or have a good perception of where they were? So I took some time. Now I read Read Dad Poor Dad. I read it a couple of years ago, and I had to go back again to do a review of the book and try to read it with more understanding of what it was saying. Now the message it was saying, or the message it was conveying, that wasn't obvious. So that's where I now saw that Rich Dad Poor Dad, as good as it is, it's a good book in terms of the fact that it gives good financial literacy. I think Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first book that opened my eyes to financial awareness. And Robert Kiyosaki has done a great job in doing that, opening people's eyes to this sphere of life called your finances. I think before the book, not too many people were talking about finances in a very relatable term. In fact, when we were talking about finances then, you had to be like an accountant or a financial manager or someone like that. And it was always boring listening to finances, listening to stuff about investment. But Robert Kiyosaki brought this home. He made it relatable, and you cannot take it away from him. He made finances relatable because he told a story that everyone could put themselves inside. So no matter how educated you were, you could relate to what he was saying in Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I think that was um, one of the strong points of the book, and that's why it continues to sell today. It has sold over 40 million copies. So that's a bestseller in any country. That's a bestseller. So he has done well for that. He made financial literacy very understandable, and that was a gap that the school wasn't doing. The school wasn't training us about our finances. School just trained us that go to school, come out, you get a job and stuff like that. But then a lot of people went to school, came out and didn't get a job and they were not doing so well. Robert Kiyosaki kind of opened our eyes to the fact that we were not being educated on one thing. We were educating us on history, on maths, on English, on sciences, but not a lot on finances, if at all. So I'll give Robert Kiyosaki, a lot of credit on that. Now, so why I'm saying this, I want to put this in perspective. Read That Poor Dad is not a bad book. It's not bad. But then you need to be careful when you read it and how you read it. And that's why we are having this session. Because like every other thing in life, Rich Dad Poor Dad has some subliminal messages, some undertones that you need to be careful of. And that's why I want to start by talking about subliminal messaging. Now, for every content out there, every content has two types of messaging. They have what they call the surface messaging, and they have what they call the subliminal message, which is way under. The surface messaging and subliminal messaging. Now, some people are intentional about their subliminal messages. Some people are not intentional. They don't even know that they're communicating anything subliminal. They're just writing everything on the surface. But it's always a subliminal. And a lot of times the surface messages is the physical messaging. The subliminal message is much deeper spiritual thing that sticks with us longer, and we don't even know it's sticking with us. Way after you have forgotten the surface story, the impact of the subliminal message is always there. I remember when I was very young and I watched this movie, Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the first horror movies I've ever watched. And I remember I was maybe about 9 or so, or 10, thereabout. I couldn't have been more than 10. And I went to my neighbor's house and they put in this movie, Nightmare on Elm Street. And the movie was very scary to me. But you know what happened was after I'd watched the movie, nights after, I couldn't sleep. For several nights, I couldn't sleep. The movie tormented me as a child. It was bad. I couldn't sleep. Because you know what? The message, the synopsis of Nightmare on Elm Street is about a man called Freddy Krueger who was killed by a group of children. Um, he was murdered or so. I think he was murdered. I can't remember. But he died. Some children were the cause of his death. And when he died, he made it his ambition to come back and haunt those people that caused his death. Now, Freddy Krueger couldn't do anything in the physical. So he always attacked them in their dreams. So from their dreams, he would kill them. So if he could kill them in their dreams, he could kill them in reality. Now, Nightmare on Elm Street was especially scary because it wasn't like one of those movies that the bad guy was operating the physical. This one, he operated in your mind. And so even when you watch the movie and you want, for every scary movie, what you take, what gives you some kind of closure is that they killed the bad guy, especially if you are a child, that they killed the bad guy. But with Nightmare on Elm Street, they never killed the bad guy. He just existed in their dreams. And everybody has dreams. So subliminally, I felt like I was under attack in my dreams. So I was scared to sleep. It made me scared to sleep. And I couldn't sleep for many, 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 many days. And it was my first entry into subliminal messaging. But definitely not my last. Because as someone that does branding, it's our job to send messages subliminally. If you are a good designer, the best designers are able to send subliminal messages, especially if you're in the area of branding. That's where branding is most effective. When you can affect people's decision without them knowing that you are doing it. So it's okay to do a flyer saying, "Come and buy this this thing. Come and buy this thing that is on sales," and stuff like that. You can do a flyer, but it's what the subliminal messaging does to you that is most impactful. So successful businesses position themselves to impact people subliminally. I remember there was a day I went to ShopRite with my wife, and when we came out from ShopRite, I told her, How many ShopRite signs do you think you saw in there, inside that shop? And she was like, I don't think I saw too many. I said, do you know that there were up to like 50 signs inside that shop? Said no. I said, there were up to 50. Saying buy, buy, sale, sale. I remember seeing those, they were like red little squares or rectangles where I couldn't see what they said to buy, but there was always buy in yellow in a red background, sales in yellow, red background, and they were so obscurely positioned that they were not in your way. You couldn't see it, but they were in the corner of your eyes. And that's why you go into ShopRite and you cannot but buy something. You will buy. You won't know when you put something into your cart. You just wanted to go and check the price of something, but you will buy something. And you're like, why did I buy this thing? Because subliminally, you were seeing that buy, but your mind did not know it was registering it. So that's why you can't walk by it and not go inside. A lot of times, it takes a lot of resistance not to go inside because they've put those messaging there. So you kind of wonder why they spend so much money on some posters and stuff like that, and because they know that those things send subliminal messages. They're not handing out flyers, but just around the shop, you can see signs that have keywords: buy, sales, buy, sales, buy, sales. So everything there seems like it's always on sales. Even though they don't tell you it's on sales, you believe it's a bargain. But it might not be true, it might be more expensive. That's subliminal messaging in branding. And but for content creation, there's always subliminal messaging. And that's where we need to be careful. You know, when you watch a movie, you read a book, there's always subliminal messages beyond the surface message. I remember there's a book called Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. It's a brilliant book. They've turned it into a movie. Watch that book, watch that movie, read the book. It seems like a fantasy story. It seems like a story that any child, anyone could enjoy. Fantasy. However, when you read the book or watch the movie, you realize that it has strong spiritual undertones, strong Christian undertones to it. And that sticks with you way longer. The same thing when you watch Lord of the Rings or stuff like that, strong spiritual undertones. A book like Harry Potter, a movie like Harry Potter, strong spiritual undertones. So when you watch Harry Potter, what you see are young kids that are interested in magic and being trained to how to handle magic. But what Harry Potter has done subliminally, it has made kids open to the concept of wizardry and witchcraft. They are not scared of it anymore. You understand? When I was growing up and you hear someone was a witch or a wizard, it sent shivers down your spine. But I remember driving my children to school some days ago and I was like, witches and wizards, not the best things. Then those things are not good. You understand? They are occultic expressions. And I remember my daughter telling me, but daddy, there are good witches and bad witches. And I thought, where did she get that from? And I was like, it's the entertainment. And they started this numbing of our minds to the occult by little things. Cartoon, they will give you Sabrina the Teenage Witch. You understand? It wasn't about a teenage witch. The undertone was accommodate this thing, accommodate this message that they're trying to sell, the subliminal message. And it has worked. It works so well. And that's where I want us to start thinking of the messaging that we receive every single day. You see, sometimes you watch a skit, all you've done is watch a skit. But in watching that skit, don't be surprised you've watched like 10 minutes of pornography without knowing it. 10 minutes of pornography. What it does is that it primes you to be open to the next content, which is pornographic. So you see that's how social media recommends content to us. So you wonder how you start out watching a skit by a Nigerian comedian, and 6 videos later, you are watching things that are semi or full pornography. How did you get there? Subliminally. It was being introduced to you just slowly and slowly and slowly. The surface message started eroding and the subliminal message started getting stronger. And before you know it, your defenses are down. That's how it works. So we must be very careful of subliminal messages. It's there. In everything, in music is there. You need to be careful. You might say the lyrics of a song is senseless. Yes, the lyrics might be senseless, but the subliminal message is never senseless. What it wants you to do is never senseless. So they might be saying words that you don't understand, that doesn't make sense, that just look like feel good songs. But what it wants you to do and what it wants to initiate you into is very clear. It's very clear. Subliminal messaging is never ever senseless. Surface messaging can be senseless. So there's never senseless content. Never. It might be senseless on the surface, but deep down under, it's subliminal. And that is what really affects you in the long run. I remember in was it the year 2000? I you know I heard Eminem for the first time, and when I heard him, I was really impressed by his ability to rap. It was like the best thing I've ever heard in terms of rap music, in terms of lyricism. It was incredible. And I remember I was in university then. And just like how you do graphic design now, we're doing architectural design then. And with a lot of design, a lot of us design to music. You understand? Music keeps you awake. It's like your coffee. It keeps you awake. And it gives you some kind of energy to put into your work. So we used to be in the studio then, in the architectural studio, and we in the architectural studio in our department, and we used to work to music. So a lot of us had Walkmans then. A lot of you might not know what a Walkman is. We had these little cassette players that would put cassettes. Yeah, now I'm going too far into this because some people don't even know what cassettes are. But we had this little cassette player and we put the stuff in it there and we start playing. They had two sides. One side, and when you finish playing one side, you turn it again and put it in there. It's a long explanation for those who don't know. But they were like iPods. You understand? Like iPods, MP3 players. So then I remember recording Eminem's album and putting it on a cassette player, and I used to listen to it while working. Every time I would work, I would listen to the whole album. His first album, the album was called the Slim Shady LP, and it was, in terms of technicality, it was very good. But then, you know what? This is where you can know what the whether content is good or bad. If you want to judge whether content is good or bad, what you need to ask yourself is not how you feel while you're consuming it, it's how you feel after consuming it. And that's when you know whether content is helpful or not so helpful. And I realized that when I was listening to the Slim Shady LP every single time while working, it helped me to work. You understand? I enjoyed it while working. But then days after listening to it, I used to feel angry. I used to feel it was me against the world. I used to feel I could talk to anybody anyhow and just call out anybody. I felt this sense of negative confidence, of just me against the world, talk to anybody anyhow, that kind of thing, call out anybody. And I felt like I needed to I needed to express myself without hindrance. You understand? So then I would just blurt out anything. And the time someone came to my room and I just said something. Even when I think of what I said then, I can't even repeat it. But when I said, I'm like, so where did that come from? You understand? Because how would you say this kind of thing? But then I realized what I had been listening to for days, and it had set my world for weeks. And then I'd become that person. That energy of that album was already in my subconscious, and I started to act in a way that was even foreign to me. And that's how subliminal messaging works. It works in a way that it influences you when you don't even know it's influencing you. So we need to be very careful. You see, I listen to a lot of music right now, Nigerian music, and I see that the messaging is just terrible. And people are wondering why they are depressed. And then, but when you are listening to stuff that is telling you, the person is telling you that there is that their account is never empty of money, that they always have money. There was something that Zlatan said in one of his songs, and I listened and I said, what's this guy saying? He said, if you don't have money, you are as good as what they call these people. You're as good as a disabled. You understand? Say you're as good as a disabled if you don't have money. It was just a line in this word, though, in the song. Oh, if you don't have money, you're as good as a disabled. And like these are like toxic messaging that are under those beats that you like. So when you don't have money, what you tell yourself is, "Kai, I'm disabled. Though. I'm nothing less than a person that doesn't have arms and feet and stuff like that. I'm as good as a beggar." Do you understand? And I realized that a lot of them says that kind of thing. It's better not to be alive if you don't have money. If you don't have money, then it's nothing to do with your, that kind of thing. And then we listen to it in an economy like ours, for those who are in Nigeria, for someone like Chanel who is in Cameroon, the same thing. It's an African thing, where we have bad governance and you realize that economy is bad. And then when you start feeling the crunch of it, you now start feeling that your life is worse than it should be. And that's the problem. It's the subliminal message. It's not like something extraordinary has happened to you. It's the messaging that you've gotten from the content you've been consuming. And so that brings me to Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, Rich Dad Poor Dad was written in 1997 by a man called Robert Kiyosaki. It was written with someone else. I've forgotten the name of the second person that wrote it with him, but he was the main person. I think the person kind of edited it for him or stuff, but he was the main person that wrote it. It's like a financial help book. It has done successfully well, sold millions, still selling millions till tomorrow. It has a lot of spin-offs to it. It has the one that is for kids, the one that is for teenagers. It has the cartoon. It has a lot of things. And he does a seminar from time to time in the US that costs thousands of dollars, training people in how to use the steps he has given you in the book. Now, as I said initially, it is a good book for financial awareness. It is a good book for teaching you about introducing you to investment. But then I'm concerned about four things that Rich Dad Poor Dad does to people. Now, there are two types of people in my own experience, and my experience could be different from any one of you. So this one is not, it's just what I have noticed. You guys might have noticed something different. So I stand to be corrected, but this is my experience. There are two types of people that stand by that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, in my own experience. So people that hold that book as the holy grail. There are two types. There are two types of people. Their lives are always two ways. Number one, there are those people that are um, there are those people that are frustrated with their lives. They are frustrated with their lives. They feel like they are failures. They feel like they should do more with their lives. But they hold that book, Read That, Poor That. That is the indices by which they judge their life. But they are frustrated. They want to be what Robert Kiyosaki tells them to be, but they see that they are not. And it makes them very sad. That's number one type of people that I have realized that there are those people that see themselves as underachievers based on their own personal report sheet from that book. Two, there are the people that have actually become successful by reading that book. But then you would realize that they've given up a part of their lives that is human. In terms of their human relationship, they've reduced the human being to poor or rich. And if you are not rich, they won't associate with you. As a matter of fact, if you are not rich, you become a stigma to them. So they judge you. Is it worth talking to this person? Man, he doesn't say anything that makes sense. Not talking about investment, not talking about this. Why am I talking with him? It's a waste of time. I want to talk about more things that are lucrative that could make me money. So every discussion, every encounter is about how they can get richer. For me, those are the two major types of people that hold this book to very high esteem. That's what I have realized. You guys might have other people that are more neutral, but I have not met somebody that is neutral by reading that book, that has not belonged to any of these two extremes, that have judged themselves very harshly as not doing well in life, or the ones that are done very well in life and judge other people harshly by their own standard. Now, one of the first things that I feel with that Poor Dad, where it misses it, is what I see as the high contrast, the polarization of rich and poor. One thing this book does is that it tells you are either rich or you're poor. That high contrast polarization is always a deadly thing. It's always a dangerous thing. That high contrast polarization of if you are not with us, you are against us is not a good way to set anything rolling. What it does is that it brings division. So when you read the book, it tells you you're either poor or rich. There's no middle class, there's no middle, there's no gray area. It's white or black. It's said from the very title of the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You see, so you're either rich or you're poor. So the subliminal message in there, when you read that book and you finish the book, the first thing you ask yourself is, where do I belong? Am I rich or poor? Unfortunately, a lot of people will see themselves as poor. It's just how life is. You would always take that other negative aspect of the spectrum, because we as human beings are drawn towards negativity. Just like when you put out a post, if you get 200 comments and 199 of them are like positive, encouraging comments, and one is critical, is that one that you will align with the most. So after reading that book, the first thing you ask is, where do I belong on the scale? Very few people belong on the rich. They belong to the poor. And it is strategically written to be like that. Because if you read that book and judge that you were rich, you will drop the book and not do anything. But if you read that book and said felt you were poor, you would further investigate that rabbit hole that Robert Kiyosaki wants to take you down. And so the tendency of you signing up for his course is way higher. The tendency of you reading or going to his YouTube channel is way higher. The tendency of you reading the spin-off of the book is way higher, because you have been found wanting. So a lot of people that step away from that book, high polarization. It's not a matter of, are you doing well? Are you on your way to becoming rich? No. The question is, are you rich or are you poor? And a lot of people step away feeling poor after reading that book. And when they step away feeling poor, they step away feeling desperate. High polarization. And it's high polarization the way the story is told. Now, for you people that have not read the book, I'll give a paraphrase of the story. It chronicles the life of young Robert Kiyosaki, who grew up in Hawaii. And he has what a normal person will call middle class parents, hardworking, well educated middle class parents. His father went by the name Ralph Kiyosaki. Ralph Kiyosaki died in 1991. So Ralph Kiyosaki never read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was written after him. Now, Ralph Kiyosaki was an educationalist. He was a teacher. He was very, very high up there in the Hawaiian schooling system. He was there, you understand, very high up there, very well educated, middle class earning, but went to the top of his career as far as he could go as a civil servant. His wife was a nurse. I think they had 3 other children. So there were 4 children altogether, apart from Robert Kiyosaki. Now, Robert Kiyosaki had a friend. His friend's name was, I've forgotten his friend's name. I think Alan Kimi. I think his name is Alan Kimi. His friend's name is Alan Kimi. Alan Kimi had a dad whose name was Richard Kimi. Richard Kimi was an entrepreneur. Unlike Ralph Kiyosaki, he was starting a business and stuff. So Alan and Rich and Robert were friends, and Robert Kiyosaki always had a tendency towards money. Obviously, he had a disposition towards money from very young. And there are people like that. There's no judging them. They like to make money. That's how they see the world. There's nothing wrong. It's a gift. Now, he had that tendency, that disposition towards money. And so him and Alan shared that. And at a point, they started making money. And when I started making money, they were literally making money. They were making copper nickels and creating their own currency. Now, Richard Kimi, the entrepreneur dad, saw them doing this and told them, this thing you're doing is illegal. Oh. You understand? If the government should catch you for making your own currency within the US where it is not recognized, you will be arrested. And he told them, if you want to make money, I will teach you. So he took Robert Kiyosaki and his son under like an apprenticeship. So they were understudying him, and he was teaching them about money. Now, Robert Kiyosaki was highly impressed by this man. Number one, The man was not, I think, was a school dropout or stuff like that. Robert Kiyosaki had never ever been interested in schooling, and he kind of saw someone that had his values in this Richard Kinney, and so he learned under him and stuff. And over the years, he saw Richard Kinney get richer, and in his mind, he saw his father get poorer. Now, this is where we need to pause. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the biggest faults of the book is that it is totally based on Robert Kiyosaki's perspective. Robert Kiyosaki is the one that says his friend's father is rich. It is the same Robert Kiyosaki that says his father is poor. That is never a good basis for coming to any conclusion. Because the real question is, did Robert Kiyosaki's father, Ralph Kiyosaki, see himself as poor? That's the most important question. Did his father see himself as poor, or was he his son that just wanted more from his father, that saw his father as poor? Did Richard Kinney see himself as rich? Did their families now, did Robert Kiyosaki's mom see her husband as poor? Did the other three children see him as poor? Did Kimmy's children see him as rich? And did Kimmy's wife see him as rich? Everything was solely from Robert Kiyosaki's perspective. And it's just like now, if I look at IK and I say IK is poor, does that make me right that IK is poor? I'm the only one saying from my own perspective, my judgment of what rich and poor is that IK is poor. That's a very unfair judgment towards IK. Because IK to himself might not be poor. IK to Miracle might be rich. And then what decides whether IK is poor is what is important to IK. And that is where that poor dad makes a very fundamental mistake. It makes the assumption that what is important to Robert Kiyosaki is important to Ralph Kiyosaki, was important to his father. And that's not true. So if you go ahead to study the family, do a background search, Robert Kiyosaki has a sister. Her name is Emi Kiyosaki. She is a Buddhist monk. She's a Buddhist monk. She was ordained by the Dalai Lama. Now, she says in her book, she has a book called Rich Sister, Rich Brother. And in her book, she was kind of countering what her brother was saying, that her father was poor. But instead, she said, no, my father was not poor. My father was rich in what he wanted to do, but he never ever cared about saving up money or investing in stuff. He cared about building the educational system in Hawaii, and he achieved that. And that made him a very happy man. So he never saw himself as poor. So Rich Dad Poor Dad is all Robert Kiyosaki's mind perception. The other kids didn't see their father at all. As a matter of fact, they were so inspired by him that one of them went to join the Buddhist monk, because she said it was from her parents that she learned the value of giving themselves to a community and helping people. And that one made her say, this is what I want to do with my life. So you can see how one person's position can be very biased. Because if she were to write a book, she won't write Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She will write Rich Dad, and she will refer to Ralph Kiyosaki as rich. But when one person gives you one indices of what rich is by their own dissatisfaction or not getting what they want from you, so you are poor. So I go and meet IK, or I go and meet Ore, and I tell Ore, I need 500 naira. And Ore says, oh, I can't give you 500 naira right now because you can't tell me what you want to use it for. Then I go around and I say, Ore is a poor boy. Poor. Ask for 500 naira, he didn't give me. Is that really a good account of who Ore is? No. Ore just said he can't give me 500 naira because he doesn't agree in what I want to use it for. So the comparison in itself is biased and faulty. Only if Ralph Kiyosaki had written a book talking about how he made a mistake in his life and how he has become poor at the end of the day can it be credible. But Ralph Kiyosaki, who died in 1991, wasn't given a chance to defend himself and to talk about his own self-perception. and the world is left to think of him as a poor dad, which is a very, very unfair judgment for the man not to be there to say what was important in his life. Some people would see me and think I'm poor, but I look at myself and I think of how happy I am, because in my own judgment, I do not fancy wristwatches. I do not fancy cars. I do not fancy those things. But those people would see that what I fancy is influence. So people might see and say, "Oh, he doesn't have this thing. He has no little or no influence." But that will not be the right judgment. So for me, that's the first shaky foundation on which the book is based on. It's based on Robert Kiyosaki's dissatisfaction with his hard-working father. For some reason, he was dissatisfied. And it happens a lot with young men and their fathers, young women and their mothers. A lot of time, young men might feel, this my father is too strict. He forces us to go to church or to go to mosque every single time. He's a wicked father. And they can write that he was a wicked man. But was he a wicked man, or a man that just wanted to put his child on the right path? And that's where that polarized opinion has to be questioned. Out of 3 children, out of 4 children, one has a perception. But because he has a book that has sold 40 million copies, that perception becomes the true perception. But is it really true? I don't think so. So the second thing about the book that I feel is subliminally passed across is the over-glorification of entrepreneurship. Now, if there is one thing I consider an evil seed that this book has planted over time, is this over-glorification of entrepreneurship. And we are still suffering it till today. Now, for a while I was watching Robert Kiyosaki's video. So I'm not talking about Robert Kiyosaki from a hearsay point of view. I spent time listening to him years ago. And I used to follow his content, and YouTube used to suggest his content. The algorithm used to suggest his content to me. It just stopped some years ago because I stopped watching it. But then one thing I realized, any one of you that follows them on YouTube, just go in that YouTube section in the search and just type Robert Kiyosaki loser. I think that word loser is one of his best phrases, loser, which is a very, very bullying term. Bullies use it a lot, especially in the US. They, oh, you're a loser, you're a loser. He loves using that word a lot. And what he says is that 9 to 5, you get a job, are losers. Only 9 to 5 get losers. People that save money are losers. Those are very intimidating words that send a message to you that you doing a particular thing in a particular way makes you a loser. It grabs your attention, it makes you want to watch the video, but then it's a subliminal message. How does it make you feel at the end of the day? Anything that calls you a name to get you to do something should be questioned. Nobody should have to call you a name to get you to see a particular point of view. Very wrong. Nobody. Because then you are being bullied into doing something. So a lot of his content, it talks about losers, losers, losers. So he says those that have jobs are losers. Those that save money, they are losers. And that's not true. Entrepreneurship is not the way to heaven. It is meant for some and is not meant for others. And I will say that again. Some people should not be entrepreneurs. And some people should be. Some people should go and work a 9 to 5. And they will find success and fulfillment and relevance there. But this book, when you read the book, it glorifies entrepreneurship, starting your own business. And I think, it's a spirit that people have. Some of us have that entrepreneurial spirit. And it's very easy to be like Robert Kiyosaki and feel like everybody should have that spirit. I have an entrepreneurial spirit. And sometimes, I can be very judgmental of people that have 9 to 5. But then I had to realize that not everybody's like me. I need to be more accommodating. I can be very outspoken, and sometimes I feel an irritation to people that are not. But then I must understand that people are not everybody can be like me. And that's because my personality type is a mixture of like choleric, a lot of choleric, and there is some melancholic there. You know, I'm very little melancholic, but I can be very choleric. You know, I'm very driven, very do this now, get it done. Some people are not like that. My wife is not like that. She's a phlegmatic. It takes her time to do stuff. So sometimes I tend to be pushy, and I need to learn to tell myself to give this person time. Now, someone like Kiyosaki seems to be very choleric, and choleric people have that tendency to call people names when they don't do what they want, when people are not working in the way they want them to work. And that's where he gets irritated. Watch a lot of video. He gets irritated by people that have 9 to 5 and tells you you cannot be successful through a night. And that is not true. It is not true that you cannot be successful doing a 9 to 5. Not true. And it is not true that you will be a millionaire being an entrepreneur. Not true. I dare to say there are people on this group. Ask IK, ask Miracle. Those two people, I know that they understand what the entrepreneurial journey is. If you ask them, they would. If you ask them, and those people will tell you the truth about. Go and think about it very well, because I know that these people have been through some kind of fire. They will tell you that it's not heaven. That's the truth. But they are made for it. There are some people that are not made for. I will never advise them to start their business. Never. If they told me, I say, well, about start my business, I'll tell them, no, go and think about this thing very well. Go and think about it too. You understand? Just like when you read the Bible, there was a man that came to Jesus and said, I want to follow you. And just told him, wait. Do you know, even foxes have houses. Or me, I don't even have a house. Where I'll put my head, I don't even know where I'll put my head. So go and think about this thing very well. The same thing with entrepreneurship. It's meant for some, it's not meant for others. But this book over glorifies entrepreneurship as the way. Entrepreneurship can be very rewarding. I won't lie to you. Rewarding on the use of your time, rewarding on how much money you can make. There is no cap. However, it doesn't always work like that. It doesn't. That use of your time, say I have my time to myself. What you realize is entrepreneur works Mondays to Sunday. Never a downtime. At least you that you work 9 to 5, you know that you are closed at 5. Entrepreneur is still working 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Sunday. Never ends. That's the truth. So that's how I have control of my time. No. When you say I am my own boss, it's a lie. You're not your own boss. You are several people's servant as an entrepreneur. Today you are a boss of this person running a fashion company. Tomorrow you are the employer of this person running a fashion company. Tomorrow you are an employee of the person that is running a school. The other day you are an employee of this person that has a music entertainment business. Sometimes they are employee of 3 people at a time. All of them calling you demanding stuff. A lot of people think entrepreneurship is a place where you can just do things as you want, but then you become a poor entrepreneur. It's very humbling. Very humbling. It's not what people think it is. If you even look at the structure of the world today, yes, some of the world's billionaires, richest people are entrepreneurs. However, what they don't tell you is most of the rich people work for somebody. So the richest might be entrepreneurs, but most of the people that are rich are employees. So it is not a stigma to be an employee. It's not. It's not a stigma to save money. It's not. Saving your salary is not a stigma. Some people are doing brilliantly well. I have a sister, my older sister. She's an employee, doing incredibly well. Incredibly well, I'm telling you. Very well. The kind of money she makes, I can only dream of making it. That's the truth. She's an employee. She's an employee. She's doing well, rising up the ladder. You understand? So that narrative, that over glorification of everybody must be a Richard Kinney and not a Ralph Kiyosaki, who worked as an employee, had a pension, waited for his pension. He said his father lost his pension at the time, but then that is not totally true. You understand? That is not true. He said that in his book, but that is not true, because I even saw an obituary of his dad that was written by people in Hawaii, and they called him a distinguished member of society that did so much for him. To the extent that when the man died, his community wrote a statement about him. That is not reflected in the book. Not. But it's there, online. You understand? So we must be careful about this glorification of entrepreneurship. The third thing is the over glorification of real estate as an investment. That's another thing that this book has done, over glorified real estate. That real estate is where you should put your money when you have excess money. And that has single-handedly destroyed the real estate market, where you have people that should not be in real estate being in real estate. Because that book tells you once you just have real estate, man, you're good. You're set to go. And it has affected the real estate market, especially in Nigeria. In a place like Abuja, it's part of why you have so many estates and still a lot of homeless people. Because as they're building the estate, someone that already has 5 houses is coming to buy another 10 units there. And when he buys another 10 units, maybe they are selling the houses at 10 million naira. Once he buys 10 units, he will sell each unit at 50 million naira. So the homeless person remains homeless. Even though there's mass housing available, everybody just sees, when I have money, put it in real estate. It's a big problem. So what this everybody should get into real estate has done is that it has worsened the housing problem. Because everybody is acquiring houses that they don't need and gouging the prices. Gouging the price of the houses because they must make money from real estate. Check it out. Half the houses, anyone that lives in Abuja, IK lives in Abuja, drive around Abuja, you see a lot of houses, big mansions. Nobody's living there apart from roaches and lizards and wall geckos. They are bought by senators and people in government that already have 5 houses. But they are buying every estate, they are buying like multiple units. And when they buy those units, they sell it to other people at 5 times the price, 10 times the price. So when the government has a housing scheme that is meant to be affordable to everybody, a rich person buys it and makes it only affordable to the rich. So people are still living in their cars and squatting in places. That's why you still go to the extremes of Abuja and you see hold up. People going outside are going to a place called Yanya, which is the extreme, or going to a place called Gwagwalada, the extreme. Everybody who is now staying in the city. But in the city, there are so many houses there because real estate is where you put your money when you have money. So everybody's just acquiring houses without a real knowledge of real estate. And then you see that in the industry, the real estate industry itself, what you have is a bunch of get rich quick people. So there was the time I was trying to sell my house here in Lugbe. Lugbe is not really in town. It's like a little bit outskirts in Abuja. We tried to sell our house here. It was so hard to sell. Why? Number one, it's not because the property was bad or the house was not good. The house was in good condition. We renovated and we had a lot of people come and visit. But then to get the agents to focus on our house was a problem because their house was in their eyes were in more premium areas. So once you tell them your house is in Lugbe, I'm not interested in selling a house in Lugbe. How much will I get as commission for that? I want to sell a house in Maitama or Asokoro. Those are like real highbrow areas there. So they're not even willing to put energy into your house because they have no passion for real estate. They have only passion for the rewards that come from real estate. And that's because books like this have told you that real estate is the cash cow. But real estate is not a cash cow. Real estate is a problem that needs to be solved. Housing is a problem that needs to be solved. But now it has been cornered as something that people spin around to make money. People should not be homeless. But people are homeless because nobody is living like, number one, land for people to buy. Number two, built up property for people to live in. Because everybody is gorging. Once give someone 50 million like this, the first advice they get, go and buy land, go and build house. But you already have a house. Then you go and buy two houses. Then you start renting. You understand? You start renting at a very exorbitant price. Because everybody wants to make money from real estate. And one of the catalysts is this book. It talks a lot about real estate. And I don't blame him for talking about real estate because that's his market. That is his market. That is Kiyosaki's market. That was Richard Kimmy's market. And he transferred that to Robert Kiyosaki, and that's his market. That's why Robert Kiyosaki is so close to Donald Trump. They're both in the real estate industry. Real estate. So of course, everybody sells their market. To a carpenter, every problem is solved with a nail and a hammer. To a doctor, every problem is solved with a stethoscope and an injection. To a graphic designer, every problem is solved with a laptop and a mouse. You understand? But the problem is when that person has a leverage of a book that is sold to 40 million people, that becomes a 40 million propagation of solving a problem in one way that doesn't work. That's the problem with the real estate market in Nigeria. It is highly, highly inflated because people just want to make money. They don't want to solve that problem of real estate anymore. That's why when you go to a place like Makoko, where there's a real housing problem, that's where real estate should start from. Someone should go to Makoko and think of how to build houses on that water that are good houses that people can actually inhabit. But nobody's thinking of Makoko. Why should I go to Makoko when there's Lekki there? Why should I think of Makoko when there's Banana Island there? But that in itself is the real estate problem. People living on sewage water in Lagos. Over 200,000 people live in Makoko. And nobody in the real estate industry has thought of solving that real estate problem. Because real estate is not to solve problems, it's to get rich. And that's one of the things this book tells you. Lastly, which I feel is most important, this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One thing I have against it as a book, a subliminal message it sends is money over human relationships. Money over human relationships. And the story of Robert Kiyosaki says it all. For a man who was sent to school, fed, housed by his father, and has no qualms referring to his dad who had died, that is the memory of his dad as poor dad, I question that a lot. I question that. I absolutely question his guts and his nerves to do that. To immortalize the name and memory of his dad as poor dad, and the name and memory of his friend's dad, who happens to be richer by some standard as rich dad, makes me realize that Robert Kiyosaki doesn't care about human relationships. He doesn't even care about his relationship with his dad. I don't think he does. I don't think he does. Because as a matter of fact, he had adopted that other guy, his friend's father, as his own father. Just on the basis that his father wasn't as wealthy as he wanted him to be. His father was not abusive, not verbally abusive, not sexually abusive, not abusive towards his mother, not sexually abusive towards his sisters, wasn't a drug dealer, didn't abuse drugs, wasn't an alcoholic. I think that man deserved more respect than Robert Kiyosaki decided to propagate to the rest of the world. I personally believe that. If any of my children were to remember me like that, it would be very sad. And I'm sure a lot of you will not want your children to ever remember you as poor this, poor that, even if by every standard you are actually poor. True love covers a multitude of wrong. Robert Kiyosaki did not cover his dad's perceived wrong, and that's wrong in itself. The Bible tells us that love covers a multitude of wrong. He didn't show any love towards his father. He might say, I love my father and stuff, but to immortalize your dad as poor dad is a pretty strong thing to do. A lot of people might not agree with me, but I wonder how many of them would want to be remembered as poor dad or poor mom or poor brother. If you can choose to be remembered, then don't agree with me. But I doubt if anybody on this call or outside this call will want to be remembered as that. Is that money over relationships? I only respect someone that has money. I only respect someone that has money. And as a matter of fact, I'm willing to give the honor I give to somebody who I should honor on a good day to the next person who doesn't really impress me financially. Of all the points I'm making, that is the one that bothers me the most. And it seems not to bother a lot of people. The first time I picked up that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it bothered me that a man could refer to his dad who was not abusive as such a derogative term as poor. It bothered me. I was so surprised that that book has flown for so long, has rave reviews, and nobody is thinking of Ralph Kiyosaki's memory. That bothered me. It still bothers me. That is that money over relationships. Now, to further buttress Robert Kiyosaki's money over relationship mind, let's say he even cut off ties with his dad and doesn't mind referring to his dad as poor dad. I did some research on Robert Kiyosaki because I wanted to know more about his family. Somebody who can call his dad dad. I would say, okay, let me know more about his family. Maybe he's actually a decent guy as a family guy. So I googled his family and his children. And what I found out, which a lot of people do not know, this man that you follow and gives you advice about life doesn't have children. He's not impotent. The wife is not barren. They just decided not to have children so that they can concentrate on acquiring wealth and building their cash flow. That is their reason. I kid you not, that's their reason. Nothing deeper than that. Robert Kiyosaki and his wife, I think his wife's name is Kate Kiyosaki, decided not to have children so that they can concentrate on building wealth and increase their cash flow. That is the truth. Not that they cannot have children. They were willing to forego this privilege. I have no problem with people that can't have children. You know, it happens. But they can. But they chose not to, so that they can concentrate on building wealth and increasing cash flow. Is that what you want to be in future? You that are listening to this thing. Is that really how you want to end up? So not only did Robert Kiyosaki break ties with what brought him into the world, he's breaking ties to what he can bring into the world. That is such a selfish way to live. I'm sorry to say, but that's the truth. That's the core of selfishness. Number one, I'm not going to regard my father who brought me into this world, took care of me, fed me, housed me, sent me to school. And I'm not also going to regard my children who I can bring into the world, feed them, take them to school, educate them, love them. The world of Robert Kiyosaki starts and ends with Robert Kiyosaki. Is that really a rich man? We must ask ourselves that question. Is that really a rich man? I don't think so. That's poorer than poor, in my opinion. It's poorer than poor. That's a man that is not willing to share his wealth. His wealth of knowledge, his wealth of finances. And maybe because he really doesn't have wealth of knowledge or wealth of finances. I really believe that deep inside Robert Kiyosaki is a man that is scared. I believe he's scared of his children becoming what he became. He's scared of having children that will judge him the way he has judged his father. He's scared of children that he will take care of and one day will decide to talk about how inefficient or how underachieving he was as a father. He's scared of his children writing a book just like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that will sell even hundreds of millions of copies and leave his name in shambles. That's what he's scared of. I truly believe that's what he's scared of. He doesn't want his children to do what he did to his father. And that's why when we read books, we must do our due diligence to investigate the authors of these books. Everything I've said here, nothing I've said is something I've conjured from my mind. They are all things that have been validated and news. Check the internet. Nothing I've said here. Read the book. Nothing I've said here is out of the blue. I challenge anybody to tell me anything I've said here is defamatory. No. It's the information he has put out and the information that is out there and the information that is in the book. Subliminal messaging. That's why when you read a book, try to investigate the author. Read a book. Try to investigate the author. People are writing about subject matters because they are so eloquent, but they know nothing about these subject matters. I don't believe Robert Kiyosaki knows anything about being truly rich as a human being. Someone that knows about being truly rich will want to bring children to the world and teach them about being truly rich too, so that they can teach their generation. Someone that hoards that doesn't truly know. I once heard about a book. It's about being a man. It's called Lover, Magician. I've forgotten the full book, but it's about how to master being a man. Being a man that everyone will love in your family, in your community. It's written by a guy called Robert Moore. Robert Moore. So when I heard about the book, someone recommended the book. First thing I went to do, check out Robert Moore. I realized Robert Moore had died. So I checked out how did Robert Moore die. It wasn't well publicized, but I finally found it. Robert Moore died by killing his wife. He killed his wife, then turned the gun on himself and shot himself in the head. Him and his wife had an argument one night. He got out his gun, shot her, then shot himself. And that is the man that is teaching you about how to be a man. There's a book I read about happiness. It's written by a man called Alan. What's his name? Is it Alan Watts? I've forgotten his name. It's about happiness. Read the book. It's very, very fluent, as in very, very fluent on happiness. I read this, about like, so man, such a good book on happiness. But then I decided to do my due diligence. What? Is it Alan Watts? I think it's Alan Watts. How did he die? Because he's dead. He died of alcoholism. He was an alcoholic. He went through 3 marriages. 3. None of them worked. Died alone in his house. And a chronic alcoholic, chronic smoker. What else did he do that was chronic? But this was the man that was teaching about happiness. Did he really know what happiness was? I highly doubt it. You see, don't be carried away by people's smooth flowing words. Investigate the writer, investigate the singer, investigate the speaker, investigate the preacher, investigate them. It's the fruit that really matters, not the surface message, the subliminal message. And you can see the subliminal message fruit in their lives. So yeah, at this point, I think it's already 1 hour. I want you guys to take some time, think about this thing. I'm not saying don't read that book, but I'm saying read that book with caution. So when you're reading that book, when you begin to think you are poor, go back and just say, oh, this is intended by this man for me to think I'm poor so I can consume more of his content and pay for it. No. Take what you can from the book, but don't let it take your identity. Don't let it take who you are in the long run. So as you read that book, remember. And one thing I would tell you, for those that are parents, parents are used to gifting their children this book. Read That Poor Dad. Be very careful. Be very careful. Let them come of age. Let them find it themselves if they have to. There are better books you can gift your children with. You don't want your children, because in the end, the children will read that book and think about it. Is my dad a rich dad or a poor dad? Is my mom a rich mom or a poor mom? You might be buying that very bullet that will kill the relationship between you and your child. There are better books you can buy your kids. Buy them a book like Purpose Driven Life. It's a good book. Teaches them better values. Teaches them better meaning in life. Read That Poor Dad. I won't be so quick to. So that's what I just wanted to share with you guys here. 1 hour, I'll be stopping this right now. If you have any questions, any opposing opinion, feel free to share. I just thought to share my opinion with you guys. And the most important message is not about Rich Dad Poor Dad. The most important message here is about subliminal messaging. Don't be a surface message person. Listen out for subliminal messaging. You understand? And how do you know whether something is good? How do you feel afterwards? How do you feel days after, weeks after, months after, years after? It always works out that way. Alcohol might taste very nice while you are taking it, but when you take it too much, when you wake up in the morning, how do you feel? You're pounding headache. You feel nauseous. It's how you feel after that matters. Sexual immorality might feel good while you are doing it, but then people know when you fornicate and do all those things, immediately you finished it. Number one, you don't want to be with that person anymore. That's why men sneak out. They sneak out without waking the woman up. You understand? Because they don't feel good about it anymore. Immediately the woman kind of looks less attractive. The Bible says about David's children, He desired his sister so much. When he had her, he threw her out. Someone he desired so much because it was immoral. But when you have like sexual intercourse in marriage, when you guys come together after the act, you even want to embrace each other more. You want to share more. That's how life works. That's how life works. Greed, the same thing. When you're greedy, I remember there was a time my wife and kids, they went to my mother-in-law's place. So when they went, I was like, "Whoa, this is my time. I'm going to set my Netflix and watch a movie, and then I'm going to go order pizza and buy this and just watch it by myself." So I ordered pizza, they bought the pizza, I got a drink, I sat there watching it. When I was like 2 slices into the pizza did not even taste nice. Tasted bad. It did not like it tasted bad, it was still sweet, but then I felt this guilt of just greed. Greed. Doesn't make any sense. I didn't enjoy it. I just put it away. It wasn't as tasteful as when we buy it and we share it in the family. I'll never forget a day that I bought small chops from a meeting I went to. And in that small chop, there was this small piece of meat. And my wife said, "Have it." I said, "No." I said, "Let's all share it. Let's share it 5 ways." And we shared it 5 ways. I've never eaten a smaller piece of meat in my life before. But then it tasted so good because we all shared it. You see, greed always makes you feel bad later on. Later on. But sharing, generosity, makes you feel alive. Subliminal message is more important than the surface message. So always check out for the subliminal message of things, and you'll see how to open your eyes and give you more clarity. So, guys, thank you for taking the time to be part of this class. I will be ending the session right now. The recording will be made available, and take some time to listen to it again and share it with people. Anyone that you feel needs it, feel free to share it. You can share it. I think I will release it as a podcast by tomorrow. So feel free to share that. But thank you guys for making time to be part of this. How many people are here? Well, quite a number of people. Danny thanks, Vivo thanks, Samuel thanks, Simi thanks, Elizabeth thanks, Mario, Tom, Victor, Chanel, Felix, Ore, IK, Miracle. I really appreciate your time, you guys. All right, take care of yourself and have a great week.